Good morning. Thank you for joining us and welcome to our weekly e-learning session. My name is Wayne Henderson, a member of Cree Lighting's training and education team and host of our e-learning series. For those watching live, happy Friday. Quickly about the session, once we get started, we'll have roughly 15 minutes of content. Our presenter will be available for Q&A at the end of the presentation. And although the participants are muted, we do encourage you all to use either the chat or Q&A box to submit questions. Please feel free to type those in during the presentation. And again, we'll review those at the end of the session. In today's presentation, we'll learn more about the International Dark Sky Association. And to walk us through that, I'd like to welcome John Vollers. Good morning, John.
Good morning.
Hey, John, real quick before we get started, can you talk about your role in the business?
Certainly. Hi, my name is Jonathan Vollers. I'm the technical manager here at Cree Lighting, mainly focused on lighting qualification, including Energy Star, DLC, and International Dark Sky Association, as well as running our photometry lab.
Perfect. All right, well, let's get started.
All right. So today we're going to talk about understanding the International Dark Sky, or IDA. And what we're going to do is step into so what is the International Dark Sky Association? It's a nonprofit organization that was started in 1988 with the goal of preserving and protecting the nighttime environment and our heritage of dark skies through quality outdoor lighting. As you can see over on the right-hand picture there, that's a shot of the Milky Way, which I don't know about you, but growing up, I didn't see that too often. And I even lived in a rural small town, but certainly with a lot of sky glow that prevented me seeing that. This was started by two astronomers and has grown significantly since 1988. They've now branched out across the world, have over 1,000 different lighting fixtures that have been certified, have 133 different international dark sky places, which are areas that you can go see the night sky as well as make efforts to keep and preserve it. They have 64 chapters across 18 different countries. You can kind of see below. Obviously, North America, Europe, Asia, Australia, India, South America, Chile, and so forth. And then there's some examples of pictures around of those night sky environments. Sedona, there's this one up on the left is in England. And you can kind of see down in the left-hand corner here, the before and after effects of, when you have a glary fixture creating that light pollution, and then what happens when that fixture is off and allows you to see the night sky. So it's a significant impact. So kind of what does IDA do? The areas they focus on is they celebrate the night, so increase awareness and the benefits of night for all living things, and how light pollution is an environmental threat that individuals can help solve, or humans can help solve. We are the contributors for this environmental impact. We have electric light. We put it, we install it, we created it. So those are things that we can do something about if we control it and maybe regulate it a little bit where to limit its impact to the environment. And obviously it has effect on humans, but it has effect on wildlife and obviously the night sky. They also have dark sky protection as one of their focuses, where they're really looking to certify different areas as well as lighting fixtures or luminaires. So that's one area of focus. Lighting where we live. That's the direct engagement with cities and communities trying to reduce light pollution. And that's through lighting policy and practice. So they provide some tools for those communities and how to advocate for it, as well as implement it in a policy standpoint. And then they have sky shed restoration, implementing coordinated, intentional, international, scalable actions to slow the halt and reverse increasing rate of light production. So think about it this way, we have the United States is very electrified. And so you have street lights in a lot of areas. So reducing or changing over those lights to better products that help reduce the amount of light pollution generated, but also creating an awareness as the rest of the world, or as third world countries start to electrify more and more, really driving the awareness that, hey, let's implement it right away from the start. So the two areas that kind of Cree Lighting focuses on, that kind of impact our business, are related to lighting where we live, which is lighting policy in communities and cities that require IDA or similar type of requirements regarding uplight or sky glow, things of that nature that are installed or part of the policy that we have to appreciate when we're bidding into those areas. And then obviously, getting our products certified through their program here, and that's what I do for Cree Lighting. So kind of how does outdoor lighting cause light pollution? Like, why is it such a big deal? So you can see here an example on the left, with a number of different photons being traced, if you will, some rays being traced, where, what happens to those photons, and how do they affect the environment. So number one here is, it's directed up into the sky. It could travel completely out of the atmosphere, or maybe, under number two, that same type of ray might hit a satellite and be picked up, or an astronaut taking a picture of the United States, sees all that light from the different cities and the roads that we have installed in our environment. So those things like that. And then, number three here, those rays could also have a chance to hit particles in the atmosphere, whether that's ice crystals, moisture of some kind, dust particles, anything of that nature, and be reflected back down. So that is what you can see on the right here. This is contributing to that sky glow. So you're seeing reflected light and through the, going up into the atmosphere and then reflecting towards the camera here in this instance. And then, occasionally, or light actually being emitted downwards and reflecting off surfaces will bounce back up and into the atmosphere. And then number five is kind of showcasing something important too, is that high angle light, where you have, kind of horizontal or just above horizontal light being spread out. And that has a significant chance of being reflected back down, causing a sky glow, or in this instance, showing it going into an astronomer's instrument and causing an issue for them. So these are all ways that outdoor lighting can kind of contribute to sky glow and light pollution in the environment. So now let's say, what can we do about it? What are some ways that, we understand how light causes light pollution, or outdoor lighting causes light pollution. And, the IES and the IDA have teamed up, and this was only released in April of 2020. So this is quite new, if you haven't seen it, and come up with these 5 principles of responsible outdoor lighting. So now, you have the IDA trying to protect dark skies, and then you have the IES guiding us on how we're going to do it as lighting practitioners. So one, useful. We should have a clear purpose for light. We shouldn't just light to light the evening sky, or light all the different areas around our building, or in our land that we might own, or something along those lines. Really having a purpose. Is it useful? Why do we have that light? Some of the things they talk about here are using reflective paints or self-luminous markers and signs for curbs and steps and things of that nature, which allow for, when light is present, maybe from your car headlights, you get that indicator for safety, but it's not self-illuminating. It's not, it's not generating light into the atmosphere when no one's around. So being useful is really important, just at the core. And then really one of the great things about solid state lighting is this second feature, which is targeted. So light should be directed only where it's needed. So I have a security door. I want to light that space. I have a pathway to it. I want that space lit. But now with solid state lighting, you can actually take that luminaire and really control the light with with close optics, doing very good things, allowing very little spill into areas that are not needed, where previous technologies, typically we're generating from a metal halide lamp or a low pressure sodium, high pressure sodium, whatever what might have been, was creating an omnidirectional light source, and then it had to be controlled down into the areas that you wanted it. Now you have a much more direct path and a much more controllable method with solid state lighting. So that should be really, really part of our focus when we're selling to this, is really understanding what's our application and how can we put the light there best. Using the RPs, RP8 is recently been updated and has a lot of guidance there on and driving to that IES recommended light levels, things of that nature, and areas and ratios. So that kind of leads us into the next one, low light levels. Light should be no brighter than necessary. So using the lowest light level required, again, at the RP level, the recommended practice by the IES, you be mindful of your surface conditions. Do you have high reflectivity, or maybe very bright concrete or asphalt, which you understand isn't going to be as reflective. So those type of things, understanding that and really driving to the lowest light levels. One of the other interesting things is the RPs recently, RP8, relaxed its ratio, so it's now 1:20. So that allows a lower light level requirement as well as a little bit relaxed ratio. So overall, your area should be less lit. And then one of the great things with solid state lighting is it can be controlled so much better than some of the traditional technologies. So turning them off on, using timers, motion detectors, dimming more effectively. So all those things are in play now that can help reduce the impact to the space and the environment, because you're controlling the light when you need it. Maybe your retail space is open till 10 o'clock at night, and then an hour after that, it dims down to 50%. It's on a motion detector, pops up. It actually provides better safety and security, because then you see the area that is the motion detection has happened. All those things are really, really helpful and can ultimately reduce the amount of light is being produced in for a building or space. And then one of the other things that they've agreed on, or the last one here, is color, is really driving to a warmer color temperature. Really the goal there is to drive down the amount of short wavelength or blue violet wavelength area that the light is producing, the luminaire is producing. And the reason why that is that the shorter wavelengths, and why our sky is blue during the day, is those shorter wavelengths more easily reflect and cause sky glow. So, the longer wavelengths, the reds, typically don't do as much or contribute as much to that sky glow. So that's what they're doing. They're not saying there's a limit here, but just try and drive it to a lowest level that makes sense for your space, for your area, for your application. Now, then this gets into Cree Lighting. So how does Cree Lighting fit into this? So what do we do to kind of contribute? We create luminaires that meet the two criteria that you need to get IDA dark sky approved. We have bug ratings where the U equals 0. So we're not creating that horizontal or uplight. So we're not contributing as heavily with that horizontal or slightly above horizontal where you get that scatter effect. Or we're not obviously having any light really directed up into the night sky itself, which could also contribute to sky glow. And the other thing is we have driven down our CCT ranges to offer 3000 Kelvin and in some instances 2700 Kelvin now, as well as 2200 Kelvin coming soon to a theater near you. See, here are a couple examples of these fixture families that are listed: RSW, CPY 250, XSPW, some Sea Light product, Treveo, some of our roadway products, our OSQ, our area product. So all these have a U equals 0 and have 3000 Kelvin available. So if you happen to have an ordinance or an application which is requiring IDA, dark sky approval, keep that in your back pocket that you understand. We need to make sure that the fixture is listed here. We are using a unit that has an uplight of 0, and we are selecting a CCT of 3000K or less to satisfy that ordinance or requirement. That's all I have today, so I hope it was helpful. And Dwayne, we can get into some questions.
All right, great. I think I do have a question. Which area light families and wall packs come in 3000K? So I know you kind of hinted about 2200. Do you want to tackle that one real quick?
So all of these families that I have shown here are products that are currently listed on the IDA. So they have at least 3000 Kelvin available. I believe the RSW is the only one that has 2700K currently available. I believe it will have 2200K soon. I'm not sure the launch date of that, but that's coming as an option.
Yeah, anything in the streetlight category, shouldn't say too broadly, the RUL wouldn't, but the XSP, the RSW, and Treveo would have 2700K options. You won't find that as much in the area light space, but
Yep.
I would say if you have the right opportunity and volume, that could be looked at as a special. So again, we'd encourage you to reach out to your sales contact and investigate that. But we've seen more of it in the roadway space where you have a lot of fixtures and certainly in residential areas where there might be more concern about higher CCTs and some of the things that John highlighted.
Yeah, and I've seen it in certainly there's some California communities that have ordinances where they want 3000K or less, especially in the residential areas. And so I've seen that implemented quite a bit. And then obviously your coastal areas where you might get into in your Floridas where not necessarily right on the beach where you might require a turtle light, but like as you move away from those beaches and into more typical areas, they want to still have that lower CCT. So yeah, it's definitely been a drive over the last number of years.
This question says, do we have full, I think it says, do we have full spectrum light? Do you want to talk about the spectrum of these solutions?
So typically, I don't have an example here, but all of our LEDs here are producing a relatively full spectrum. So you may have a blue pump LED, so you have a blue peak, but you have phosphor converting, so you have all the way to that red, longer wavelengths. So full spectrum is kind of a tough statement. But all of these lights are producing a large range of colors to then obviously represent the space, any product being reflected in it.
Yeah, there's a question about, I don't know if you know much about NSA and NDA requirements in terms of 2700K being suffice and eliminating shorter bandwidth. So I think it has to do with maybe military and what some of their special requirements might be. Have you had any conversations or been pulled into those discussions at all?
Not really, but I mean, there are other areas that obviously, like we talked about turtle lights, where they're limiting the amount of blue light, maybe right on a beach. Actually, observatories have a lot of requirements which had driven them to still be using maybe even low pressure sodium as their option at current, maybe in the last couple of years. Obviously, I think you're getting into options now with LEDs that would eliminate that requirement. They'd be able to be satisfied with solid state lighting. So I wouldn't necessarily specifically to the government regulations, but certainly in more commercial community-based requirements there are some areas that drive that.
Yeah, we have a question too about, are we seeing more cooler lighting temperature requests from customers, and they're kind of curious about what's the most popular color temperature we have. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, our most popular color temperature still is 4000 Kelvin, and it's really
We're talking about outdoor here, right?
Yes, correct. Outdoor spaces. Yes, obviously. Though, to be honest, even indoor spaces, commercial wise, is still probably the most popular. So, actually, the interesting things is LEDs now are really so focused on 4,000 Kelvin that's almost typically 4,000, 5,000, and 5,700K are all the same efficacy now because they've really focused on targeting for 4,000 Kelvin being the optimal. But yeah, that is still kind of the bread and butter. And the interesting thing, and one of the things that I think I'd like to see in the future is IDA maybe moving to the amount of blue light content, which would, depending on your LED and your technology, still might be 4,000 Kelvin, but has lower blue light content than some standard that is created versus just a straight 3,000 Kelvin CCT, because that doesn't necessarily eliminate all the blue light, compared to, like, some of the older technologies. A halogen technology is going to have a fair amount of blue light in it. So, blue wavelength, I should say. And so, understanding really more about the blue light content would allow for higher CCTs to still actually be IDA approved, I think. But, that's down the road, and hopefully that's something that we can get some science behind to give them a better metric than just straight CCT.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a clarification on that one earlier question about the, I think it was the NSA, and it really relates kind of more to Flagstaff and Tucson metro areas, for example, requiring a narrow spectrum in 2700K. You talk about 2200K. You really need to probably look at the spectrum of the source, or even if that's built into the specification, understanding what the ask is, right?
Yeah, and I think those ordinances are based on, it's easier for some of the astronomy or tools to filter out narrow spectrums. So if you have a full spectrum, which I would advocate any outdoor lighting for general outdoor lighting and not near specific areas like an observatory or a beach for turtle environment type of thing. That that's where maybe narrow spectrum would be more helpful, because they understand what that spectrum is. They can use filters to help eliminate that contribution, and that clears up their sky, if you will. Where a broader spectrum, maybe not, I don't want to use the term full, but a broader spectrum light, like most of our products here, um, would be something that would be further away from those devices.
There's also a question
Does that make
about,
sense? You
yep,
think?
there's
Okay.
also a question about the CRI on the 2200K solution that we'll be bringing to the marketplace. You want to comment on that?
I believe it's actually 70 CRI. Typical of an outdoor light. You know, just because light is warmer does not necessarily, the color renditioning renditioning doesn't necessarily have to be, doesn't automatically make it better per se.
Yeah,
So that, I think it's 770 CRI. But
I
I'm
believe
not
that to be,
100% sure.
yeah, I believe that to be the case as well. And if you look at 2200 high pressure sodium, that's typically a so now
Yeah, I
you'll
was gonna
have
say.
to kind of replicate the color appearance of the source, but
Yeah,
certainly elevate the color rendering experience.
right. So that 2200 is still a broad spectrum, uh, phosphor converted, broad spectrum LED light source, where high pressure sodium is a very smaller wavelength produce, very very narrow wavelength band produce. So your color rendering is based on, it's, if you check multiple reference color points and you only have a you have a broad spectrum versus a narrow spectrum, that narrow spectrum, as you said, is like 20. You're not your color reference is pretty atrocious. Where broad spectrum, which we're trying to produce, is creating a much better lighting environment to see those colors that are present.
Yeah, we had a presentation earlier on turtle lighting, and amber lighting was also kind of included in that. But that's another important distinction, right? So amber light doesn't necessarily equate to turtle lighting either. There's a spectrum requirement. Um, for Florida Wildlife Commission to kind of qualify. So you do have to dig into the details to make certain that you're delivering what the customer's expecting, right?
Yeah, and I think that's important to understand here is that, these type of lighting ordinances are, you need to go to those specific ordinances, see what they're requiring. IDA might be part of it. Maybe that's only a portion of it. Maybe there's some extra information there that we have to satisfy, that we have to go, be specific and dig a little bit. And we can certainly help do that. That's the goal, is that, come and ask those questions of our teams at Cree Lighting, and we can help provide that data. And I'm happy to help in those regards.
The question is it difficult to provide safety levels, a safety environment with warmer color temperatures? Is any evidence of compromising safety with warm solutions?
No, I don't think so at all. I think what you're really doing is, you know, again, the warm solution, our warm solutions here, whether you're talking a 3000, 2700 Kelvin, or even, the future coming 2200 Kelvin, is a broad spectrum light. It's producing all your color spectrum, where you're going, if something is green or red, you'll be able to see it. So from a safety and security standpoint, it's really more about light levels and control of where those light levels go. Obviously, you want them focused down. You want them on the surfaces that matter, maybe the wall around a door, security door, the pathway leading to and from it. Those safety and security environment things are really enhanced by that broader spectrum, as well as our control that a solid state lighting product provides or can provide. Certainly Cree Lighting units provide.
Okay. Hey, do you have time to maybe quickly talk about the process of getting, the list of products you have up here looks like kind of a list if you just look at the family category. So it's a little bit different than maybe getting something qualified for the DLC. Do you want to talk about how they might vary a little bit?
Yeah, so the IDA is not trying to be a clearinghouse for every model number and have it listed that you specifically go look line item by line item. The goal is for it to be a direction that, you know, this family of products has a U equals 0 products available, and 3000 Kelvin or less, I should say, available in it. So you still have to be responsible for buying the right fixture to meet the IDA requirements for an ordinance. But the way that I would go about listing these products is I get the IES files together, I get the spec sheets together, which documents the CCT that's available, as well as the IES files, which show the distribution of light, showcase to them that we have that U of 0 in all these different optics. For instance, if we look at the CPY 250, the flat lens is approved, but the drop lens actually does have uplights. So therefore, that's really not an appropriate choice for an IDA application. So, those are things that need to be considered when selecting out of the family that's listed. So again, this is more of a guidance, that these fixtures have IDA approved within the family. You still have to be a little responsible on how you select out of that family.
Perfect. All right. Well, if you want to go to the last slide, I'll close up shop for the week. I want to thank John for his presentation and his time. I also want to thank the audience again for joining us and all the great questions you guys submitted. Looking a couple weeks out, next week we'll be looking at lighting for outdoor pedestrian spaces. And then the following week we'll be looking at some of the environmental things that the Cree Lighting does to be a good steward for the environment. So with that, if you have missed any content that's been previously presented, feel free to check us out on our YouTube channel. And if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. With that, I want to thank everybody again for your time, and everybody have a great weekend.